Hi, in this video I will show you how we can visualize tables within a visual drawing and perform the necessary actions whenever a user selects one or multiple rows. The first thing that we want to do is visualize a table. Let us first go to the DataMiner help to see how this is done. We go to Basic DataMiner Functionality, go to Visio Drawings, and then click on Turning Shapes into Controls. Click on the first item, and over here you can see that we have a couple of options. We can specify standalone parameters, we can specify parameters that are actually cells within a table, but we're more interested into the complete table. So let us first check how this is done. Now, as you can see, we have first or need to define a group that represents the table, which contains the element ID or the element name and the parameter ID of the table. Inside that group, we have optionally two shapes. One shape is required, the other one is not required. First shape is just a normal rectangle drawn in Visio with one shape data field. It's called parameter control options and with a value table. Now the optional rectangle is the filter. So if you would like to define a filter, you can also do that like this. Let us go to our element to see how this is done. In my example, I'm showing all the devices that are visualized in the DataMiner IDP rack layout on this table. Inside the group, so I clicked one time, I am now at the group level. If I drill down by clicking once more, I'm now at the shapes inside that group. It contains one specific rectangle with one parameter control options called table. I also want to show a filter for my table, so I have a second shape with filter defined, as you can see over here. Now you see that quite a lot of columns are shown over here, and maybe that's not the thing that you are interested in. So let us see in the DataMiner help how we can work around that. We click on adding options to a parameter control, and over here you see that we have quite an extensive list of things that we can do. Now for this use case, I'm interested in the include bits and table row filter. We click on this, and as you can see, we have two options that we can define into the parameter control options of the group. So what we can do is on the group level define parameter control options and fill in the value. Now what we want is we want to include two columns, the index and the rack. We also want to apply a server-side filter based on the name of the rack. If it's -2, which in the foreground is not selected, we don't want this in the table. So we copy this value, save it, and look at the results. Now you can see that this table is already filtered, but we still can use another filter by using our filter box. Now, I said that we used a server-side filter. We can also use a client-side filter. It's called client-side row filter. The difference is that the data is first fetched, and then after on, the client-side row filter is applied. Now, the syntax of this filter is exactly the same thing as you would type in the text on the filter box. So you can also use regex, for example. There are quite some more options, like the column widths that you are able to define. But now I'm more interested into actions. I want to perform or show something whenever a user clicks on a row. So let me show you that. on the elements, I need interaction with the visual overview. I also need to define something in the protocol. Now, as I'm referencing the DataMiner IDP rack layout manager, I need to find something in the driver. It's called selection set var. We're using this table, and on the primary key, we have an option called selection set var. And this is the name of the session variable that will be populated whenever a user selects one or multiple rows. Now, in order to show you that, I have a quick example where I just use the variable selected devices in a shape data text. If you can see, now whenever I click one row, the session variable is populated with the primary key of that row. If I select multiple rows, you see that all values are appended to each other, and a pipe character is used as separator. Now, based on this session variable, I want to show hide a couple of things. Now, the first item that I can use is something like this. It's an extended condition. Now, this is also explained in the DataMiner help. We search for extended conditions. And here you can see how or which actions we can use together with the extended conditions. In my use case, I'm interested in the hide and show shape data fields. Now, the condition or the value of that field contains of quite some information. First, a logical expression is used. So that's just a Boolean expression that looks at the content of each individual condition. The individual condition has an alias that is used in the logical expression, a target, whether it's an element, view, service, or just a value, what, and a condition. Now, there are quite some things that can be used in this condition, so let me just explain it by using my example. As you can see, the logical expression in my use case has two conditions, A or B. Now, I also used a separator because I use dynamic values. I use the selected devices. If I don't change my separator, I need to be sure that the content of the selected devices variable doesn't have values that are the same characters as the separator. The separator was before a dash, now it's a question mark. So let me evaluate the individual conditions now. Condition A is about a value, and the value of that has to be evaluated is the session variable called selected devices. Now, we use this as a condition. So as you can see, we can also use rechecks. On this condition, what I'm checking is the selected devices empty or not? Condition B uses also the selected devices, but it looks if there is a pipe character in the value of selected devices. This means that multiple rows are selected, not one. If you now combine that, it means that we only want to hide or show a shape whenever only one row is selected. So let us apply that to this shape. We save the visual. You can see the selected devices is empty. We select one row and the shape is shown. Select multiple rows, it's again hidden. Now, we don't only want to show and hide things, we also want to perform some actions. And here you can see that in the use case of IDP, we have a show in the rack button, where we use the same principle as on here. Select multiple rows. We cannot show one particular device in a rack. We can only show whenever a user clicks on one row, and then we can do the action. Now on this use case, I will show you how we can easily work with session variables and conditions on the page itself. So as you can see, I only have one shape selected. I click on the shape and then something happens. This is what I want to accomplish. As you can see, I'm setting, I have the same condition as on my previous example, but now I just have an extra shape data field called page opened, called setVar, and I set the session variable page opened to yes. My page contains one shape data field called initVar, and page opened is set to no. Now I have another group that I am able to show like this. And I want to show this page or this section whenever I clicked on the page opened button. And then I can close my page again or this section again by using this button. I select the page opened session variable to no, and also the selected devices session variable that is in the table is set to empty. So we really need to reselect a row whenever we want to have an action. In the page itself, I use the selected devices session variable just to showcase that I'm able then to dynamically fetch, for example, information from this element. So let me show how that works in practice. So as I see, as I have said, I clicked on the button before, and now my page is opened. If I now try this again, I click on the button, and you see that the page is opened and referencing to a particular element. Now I cannot select any row anymore until I click on close, and now I can select again whenever I want. If I select multiple rows, I cannot select or I cannot click on the button. I can only click on the button whenever I select only one row. Now this is a kind of hidden feature where that you can use. It's using inside this group, I have a layer up front that prevents the user from clicking on the table. In this video, I showed you how we can visualize a filter table and use extended conditions to show hide shapes based on the selection. Based on that selection and based on other conditions, we can also show and hide other sections of the DataMiner visual.